Welcome back to the Today with Tally podcast, folks. We have a great show in store for you today. We sit down with the founders of a veteran-owned business, Assault Forward, and we learn their unique story on how they met, how they crossed paths, and what the vision is of their company, Assault Forward. But first,
hello, friends, and welcome to another exciting episode of Today with Tally. The mission and goal of this podcast is to bring an engaging conversation that will add value to the lives of everyday people. We will inspire, encourage, educate, and tell the stories of America's finest men and women in an effort to motivate you to live your life to its fullest potential. Be sure to follow us on social media and search Today with Tally. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and share the program as well. Ladies and gentlemen, your host of the evening, Mr. Brian Tally.
Now, our next guests are in business together. Now, Joe Himpelmann and Shah Chowdhury, they never crossed paths in the military. They both were in the Army. They both had the same MOS, but they would not connect until they were both in college after their military service. And they built a friendship, and now they're business partners. They own a company called Assault Forward. They specialize in patriotic lapel pins, cufflinks, tie clips, and much more. And with that, we are honored to be joined by Joe and Shah. Gentlemen, how are you?
Hey, Brian. Thanks for having us on.
Absolutely. I sincerely appreciate you guys coming on. You guys have a great story. First off, thank you both for your service to our country. And thank you again for what you're doing now in your veteran-owned business by putting a lot of really great merchandise out there for folks to purchase and to wear proudly as we all attend these events all over the country, whether they're, galas or veteran events or, whatever they may be. You're giving a lot of folks out there a lot of really great options.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the origin story of it. Is just when we were coming out of the military and we were getting our professional careers going, or our second act, if you will, after the military, for better or worse, we like to joke, we ended up in suit and tie jobs. And we said, look, we love Grunt Style, Nine Line, Ranger Up, all those companies that were out there at the time, with their kind of pride of service apparel and very like hoo-ah messaging, but unfortunately, we just couldn't wear that in our work settings where we could, use it as a intro to connect with other veterans. Because when you see somebody with a Grunt Style shirt, you're like, oh, I know that, he or she's a patriotic American or served, right? And so we were like, how do we share that pride of service in a professional setting? And so at the time, I thought, well, the reverse American flag, like we wore on our shoulder sleeve in combat, subdued in color, field of stars to the right, charging forward or assaulting forward. Like that's a cool symbol. Can I make that into a lapel pin, or could I wear that as a lapel pin? It wasn't even a business idea. It was just like, I just want to wear one, as a way to show that it's like different than a typical waving a full color flag that a politician might wear. And I just looked online. I was like, oh, somebody's got to have this online, right? So I'd search for it online, use all the common shopping sites, look on all the other sites and just try to find it. And it wasn't out there. So that idea came and went a few times, and I'd search for it. And eventually one day I was searching online and I found what was being sold as an upside down protest pin. But I was like, hey, if I flip it around, it would be the reverse flag that I was kind of looking for. So I bought one and I wore it. And Shah saw me in it. It was like, hey, that's cool. Like, what, where'd you get that? Because he got the meaning of it, right away as a fellow veteran. So I ordered a couple more, gave them to a couple other veteran friends. It was like, this is kind of cool. Like, this doesn't exist. Like, but the way the pin backing was, it would flip because it was meant to be. So anyway, so we were like, that was what we started kind of sharing that symbol of our service in a professional setting. And then Shah kind of thought it could be an idea for maybe a business.
Love it. There's, so many, t-shirt companies out there, hat companies, morale patch companies. I mean, you name it. There's so many of them out there and they have so much competition. But when I came across your guys' website, I'm like, man, this is very unique. And yeah, I really do like the fact that, you guys are in the cufflink business. You guys are in the lapel pin business. And every time I go out to a gala or whatever, you see veterans, they all have lapel pins. Everybody in Congress has got lapel pins now. You go into the corporate world, they're all wearing lapel pins. And you guys kind of went up one and said, hey, look, we're going to do this, but we're going to have a patriotic theme behind it. We're both U.S. Army combat veterans. We met at college. One thing led to another. And here we are now with the Salt Forward being a very, new and up and coming business. You guys started 2017?
So we started, we went live first, like in early 2018. We graduated from the program like August 2017. We had the idea like a couple months later, and really we say our flash to bang was like 4 months when we first had the idea to when we launched the website and I had our first sale. So we've been going on, like 5 years, going on 6 years now. So it's been fun. Yeah, to your point.
For us, I think that was kind of an important thing, and advice we often share with other veteran entrepreneurs or folks that want to start something like that is that it's never been easier to start a small business. For us, we are an e-commerce company, so we each put in like $500 to start the business, which was building out a simple e-commerce website, small order. We launched the website with a single product, one pin, the reverse American flag lapel pin, and then just started a Facebook page, an Instagram page, TikTok page, whatever, and just put it out there on our personal networks, and then built up the Assault Forward version of those social media pages. And that was kind of once we sold that first batch of initial pins, we really used that money to reinvest in the business. But it wasn't something that we overthought, something like, it's like, oh, once I have $1 million of, investment in my business, then I'll be able to launch, or once I have, retail partnerships, or once Walmart agrees to put these on every store in America, then I'll have a great business. It was like, no, just start it and try it. And if it works, reinvent it, redo it, reinvest in it. And, you can iterate and learn along the way. You don't have to have it all figured out to start.
Absolutely. Yep. Just go and do it. And, just do an as-built, kind of like you're building a house. You got a set of blueprints. You're going to have changes. You're going to have modifications. You're going to kind of learn as you go. You're going to learn the business. You're going to learn, your customer base and, your target audience and all that stuff. But yeah, it's kind of like the couple, right? The early 20 couple saying, we're going to have kids in our 30s. Nah, it doesn't really work out like that. If you're going to have a kid, you're going to have a kid. You know what I mean? It's you can't really just plan and prepare all this stuff like down to the wire. You got to just get out there, do it, get out of your comfort zone, and set on the mission and the voyage that you guys are on. But before we get too far down the road on what you're doing now with the Salt Forward and the success that you guys have seen, I want to talk about what it was like when you guys were in high school and you made that decision to join the U.S. Army. Joe, we'll start with you.
Yeah. Well, I was lucky that even though I grew up in the Chicagoland area, Northern Illinois, right in the shadow of Great Lakes Naval Training Center, I was lucky that my high school had a Army ROTC program. And so I was in the Army JROTC program in high school. And that was kind of my first exposure to the Army, and used that as kind of piqued my interest that this was something I could do, and decided to go that route with it. And then, entering the military, got branched field artillery. So, of course, took a lovely trip to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, which Shah and I both speak fondly of the Lawton, Oklahoma area and our time there, to go through initial entry training and come out of that before we hit our first duty stations, learning everything about the field artillery and cannons, rockets, and missiles and all that good stuff. So yeah, it was an exciting start for me. But yeah, I think it was just, going back, like you said, to your question about like why or what made you want to do it. For me, it was just kind of something I always wanted to do. it did not have any immediate family members like that were in, or any, and a couple uncles that were drafted in during the Vietnam era and things like that. But just something I wanted to do, and so I just found the way to do it through that initial exposure of like a JROTC program, in high school.
Would you consider your time in the Army to be a time where you grew a lot and you found out a little bit more about who you were as a person and as a man? And did it give you the tools that you would need to advance in life to be the successful man you are today?
Oh, I mean, without a doubt, that's a no-brainer for me. I mean, it was basically, I always say like my 20s was what I spent in the military. And 3 years of that was spent deployed. I have 36 months of combat deployed time, 2 years in Afghanistan and 1 year in Iraq. And the leadership that, what I learned from each subsequent deployment, and watching leaders ahead of me, I used on the next deployment and the next deployment. The growth and maturity that you gain and experience through that, the risk, calculated risk taking, and so many times as I transitioned out of the military into civilian career, people that had never served were you'd look at me and be like, well, you've obviously done things harder than this. So this must not be that big a deal for you. Like, of course you can do this. But as you're learning and growing, it's like, you're right. Of course I've done things harder than this. Like, this is not scary. There's no failure here doesn't equal death. It just equals trying again. Right. So there's that perspective that you gain, I think is critical to, being successful and just being, going after things and just being, hopefully a high achiever.
Amen. Yeah, there is no fail, right? It's just the first attempt in learning, like they like to say. Now, Shah, you come from a completely different city. I believe you hail from New York?
New York City, yeah.
And tell me a little bit about when you decided to join the Army and when that all came into fruition.
So my dad, so I'm first generation American here. Like, my parents are immigrants from Bangladesh. So I was born and raised in New York City, but I have a lot of family members who are in the Bangladeshi military. So my dad tried to get into the West Point of Bangladesh. He couldn't make it, but I had a lot of uncles, cousins, and stuff who were military officers there. So my dad, was at a young age was like, hey, you should go into the Army here. It's an honorable profession. You have a job lined up. It's good. And, as a kid growing up in New York, like, I didn't know people who really served, right? So I was like, the Army, what? I don't want to do that, right? Like, I wanted to play basketball and do other things, right? So, but then one summer, so we would go, my parents are from there. So we would, they've been in America for like 40 plus years, almost 50 years. We went to visit, we would visit every other couple of years. And I had a cousin who was recently promoted to captain. He was an ordnance officer in the military there, in the Army. And we kind of hung out on the military post. And I was like, seeing him in uniform and, obviously a different military, but I was like, oh, this looks kind of cool, right? Like, what he's doing. And so then from there, went to college and went to the ROTC program in New York City. And it just kind of fell in love with going into the military. I was like, hey, this is a path for me. Like, I knew the job for me when I lined up. And but to Joe's point, I guess I was commissioned like 10 days before 9/11. So 10 days before in New York City, born and raised New Yorker, I had to take summer classes. So I took my oath, and then 10 days later 9/11 hit. I tell this story a lot. Like, my ROTC training doctrine, if Joe remembers, FM 7-8, right? Remember that? So that was the old infantry rifle platoon tactics that they would train cadets in. And it was all based on like Vietnam era jungle operations, right? Doing patrols in the jungle and react to contact and, doing all this. And then 9/11 hit and we're not in the jungle, right? So a year later, I was in Baghdad, right? I was doing patrols in Baghdad. So totally different growing up, like to what Joe said. But then to your point, you asked Joe, did it shape the person you are? For me, 100%. Like, if it wasn't for the Army, like, I have no idea what I would have done. And so I was a completely different person, like, in college. Now, I was always kind of motivated by different things, but I was an early riser. Like, I remember my dad used to drive him crazy. I told Joe this story. New York City, any big city has like these alternate parking rules, right? You have to switch the cars every once in a while. And I would always wake up too late to change the car. I would always get tickets on the car. My it would drive my dad crazy. So I don't know. I was like, man, when did that happen? What was the timing? Like, I had to move the carpet like 10:30, and I couldn't get up like by 10:30, which is insane. And so like going into the Army, getting up at 5, doing PT in the morning, like that just changed who I am as a person. Now, even to this day, like I get up every morning, 4:30, 5 o'clock, do my PT in the morning. So it did change me as a person, 100%, like a completely different person than who I was in college. So for me, like I say, the military just turns you into a man, teaches you responsibility. Like I have family members who I've talked to them, they're kind of lost on the path of life, right? They're like, hey, and I always say, look, our parents back in the day, like they came here, in the 70s, like not knowing, this was before Google, internet. They had no idea what they were doing. They were taking a trek across the foreign lands to build a better future for their family. Like we owe it to them to do good in this world, in this life. But if you're figuring out what you want to do, like the military will help you get there, right? Like if you're trying to get direction, you get a place to sleep, food to eat, you get healthcare taken care of. You just have to do a job, right? And you do a lot of cool stuff. And I was talking to another guy who I talked to recently, and the AMVET's executive director. I was just talking to him. He's a Marine guy, and he was like, man, like I didn't realize all the cool stuff I did when I was in my 20s. And the Joe, like, I got to ride in Black Hawk helicopter, Abrams tanks, and shoot Mark 19 grenade launchers. Like, when you're 20 something years old, you don't realize how cool it is. And now, 20 years later, like, wow, I got to do some cool stuff. But 100%, it changed me as a person.
Absolutely. You were saying that, you guys were all training and, jungle training, this and that. We had no idea that we would be fighting a war on terror in urban areas. So, yeah, that was a quick switch right there, going from, training out in the field, like you were saying, jungle tactics and, trees, mountains and all that stuff to like urban, terrain and clearing buildings and all that. Yeah, it's absolutely insane. And, you were saying that you had enlisted just right before 9/11. What was going through your mind being in New York, having 9/11 happen when you had just signed up to join the Army? What did your family think of your decision? And did you ever recount and say, you know what, am I making the right decision here?
No, great story. So being in New York, it was crazy. I never saw New York City shut down, right? Like I grew up, we would go out all times of night. Like people say, the city that never sleeps, and it is true. If you want to get pizza at 4 a.m, you can find a pizza place open at 4 a.m, right? But seeing New York City shut down, it was eye-opening. I have a lot of family members who served in the military, Air Force, Army, Marine Corps, and a lot of cousins right now in the NYPD. So our family, like my extended family, have a lot of service behind, but I never thought about it. It was just, hey, like it was what's happening to this city. Like this one place, I think going back, like the country was united at one point, right at that point. But my dad is the one who pushed me, right, to go in. So my dad, my family knew what I was doing, signed up for it. And then I went on active duty 2 months later. So it was never a question of, oh, did I make a mistake? It was like, no, like this is, for anything. It was actually, I talked to a veteran, like one of the older kind of Cold War vets. He was like, man, you guys were quote unquote so lucky, like you got to do what you trained for, like almost immediately getting on active duty, where some of these Cold War guys who served 20 years and never saw anything, right? So no, and I will say one thing though. One time I remember, fast forward, we were in Baghdad and we were kind of trailing this car. I forgot why we were trailing it, right? For whatever reason. And I'm looking at, Arabic license plates in Iraq. And I'm like, how the hell did I get myself when I'm chasing down this car in the middle of Baghdad? Like, what decisions led me here, right? But no, never questioned it. It was just a part of, part of life. My family knew what I did. Like, again, it was my dad, and he was super proud, even still to this day. Anytime I meet one of his friends and stuff, they're like, oh, you were the Army guy, right? You were the Army guy. So they all kind of know that. So yeah, no regrets at all.
Love it. In being a first generation American, I bet your family was very proud of you to sign up and to serve this country that I know has given so much to your mother and your father, and to give them a better life. And some of the best Americans I know are people that have come here to improve the quality of their life and to give folks like you, their first generation of kids, the life and the liberty and the freedom for you to live the life that you were intended to live, again, through service. And the reason why so many of these people that I know that are some of the best Americans I know that were either born here or they're first generation American. They know what that American history is because they learned it. They've gone through citizenship type classes. They've learned that the pride and the values of being an American and being a servant and being a leader. And they also know the Constitution. I mean, you can go walk the streets of New York City and go up to an 18-year-old kid and ask them who the president was. 10 years ago, they won't have a clue, but, that's where, there's a lot of respect that I have there with a lot of folks that come here bettering their life, but doing it the right way and going through all the different channels of, going through the citizenship classes and again, building that life, laying down roots so they can put good, honorable men like you in our country. That just makes it better. And then here you go, and you're serving this nation. Now, you guys, again, Sam and MOS, both were in the Army. Paths never crossed. But hey, you can't fight fate. You guys get out, you go to the University of Maryland, you meet, take it from there. How did this friendship begin?
Yeah, I think, it started with that connection as fellow veterans. That's obviously a huge, connection and establishes a relationship right there. Like, hey, this person has shared experiences, shared values. A lot of that connection comes from that service background. And then with the lapel pin thing, gave one to Shah and thought nothing of it. And then Shah's like, well, there might be a business here. And I was like, well, that's a stupid idea. Selling a lapel pin is not a business. That's like, there's nothing there. So I dismissed his great idea. And then he circled back around and said, I think I'm going to do this. It was, you should probably do it with me. And I was like, all right. At that point, kind of said, all right, I'm on board. And so I came around and we launched Just All Forward. And we created the website and launched with that single pin, subdued reverse American flag lapel pin, which we still have on our website today. And is, like I said, that symbol of our service from the type of flag we wore on our uniform in combat. And then from there, we just, we listened to our customers and said, hey, I love you guys being 100% veteran owned and operated small business. Love the fact that you're going to make everything in America, because that was just a decision we made in starting the business. Like, hey, if we're going to sell American flags on lapel pins or anything else, like, it's got to be made in America. Like that was just a no-brainer for us. So so people came to us and say, hey, I love this made in America, but I didn't serve. I don't want to wear a reverse one. Can you make it forward facing? So we made the forward facing one. And then people were like, hey, again, love veteran owned, love American made, but I do just want a red, white, and blue flag pin. All right, we'll make that, And then I had a great idea from a customer not too long ago. They said, I want an all black, like clandestine flag, just blacked out. No, still has the details of the stars and the stripes, but just all black. We're like, all right, we can do that. And that's the fun thing that Shah always talks about being a small business. It's like, if we have an idea, I go, hey, do you want to do this? And he says yes or no. Same thing, vice versa. Like, we can talk about it, but there's no corporate hierarchy. This doesn't have to go to a board for approval. It doesn't have to, be vetted through 4 different departments. It's just like, yeah, we could probably do that. Okay. Do we have money in the bank account? Can we order something new? Okay. Yep. Cool. Let's do it. So the stealth mode pin that we call it, the all black one, has become very popular for us. And just everything else you see, we basically started with just, listening to our customers and what they were after. The same thing with the reason our cufflinks are cool. And we have them both in the subdued, like gunmetal colors, as well as the full color, red, white, and blue. But one of our flags is forward facing and one is reverse. So like if you go to a generic retailer and you get a set of flag cufflinks, they're both facing the same direction, both facing forward. So when you wear them, one of them is technically backward because it's not flying forward. So we give you one. So the stars are always charging into battle, leading the assault forward. We think that's a unique differentiator, is that just because of our veteran experience and the way we believe the flag should be flown, our cufflinks, you get one facing each direction. It's just little things that set us apart as a veteran-owned small business where we have a different perspective and understanding of the way the flag and the U.S. flag code is interpreted and should be respected and worn. And again, with everything being made in America, for us, it's like a source of pride. Like, if you're going to buy an American flag lapel pin, you can find a cheaper one online. They are made in China. They might have dots instead of stars. They may have 5 or 7 stripes. There's some funky flag pins out there, but you can find a cheaper one for sure. But if you want a high quality, meets the dimensions of the U.S. flag code for height and width, 50 stars, not dots, 13 stripes, that's what you get when you buy it from an American-made, veteran-owned small business.
Love it. One thing I picked up there, is like, we don't need to run this through 8 or 9 departments if we want to have a little bit of product innovation, right? That's where the private sector is so great. There's no bureaucracy, right? There's not this like guy punching the clock saying, yeah, I'm going to take 4 months to come up with an idea here on if I'm going to approve this lapel pin. So yeah, God, I love the private sector. So now lapel pins, cufflinks, tie clips. What else do you guys offer at Assault Forward?
Well, we've got some great hats, which we're really proud of. There turns out that kind of one of the last places in America you can get American-made cotton and textile manufacturing is down in the Carolinas. So we've got a great small factory in there that makes these American-made hats for us. And again, this was something where you talk about, iteration and not having to go through a bunch of approval process, right? We said, what I really hate? I really hate that button on the top of all hats, because every time you hit your head, it bumps into your head, and that button just, what's the point of that button? Can we take that off? And they're like, I guess you could take that off. Sure. So all right, no button on the top of the hat, we're like, we want the embroidered reverse American flag on the right side. We want we want an upgraded sweatband on the inside. So it turns out like one of our best customers for hats has been like tradesmen and companies that buy them on behalf of their employees to give out. And they're the greatest hats. One of my best friends is an electrician, and he wears his hat into the ground, and then I send him a new one. But like they're just good hats, and they're made in America, and they're super comfortable, and people have been really happy with that. So, but we enjoyed that process though. Like, we didn't want a Velcro closure. We have what's called a tri-glide slide closure on the back. So just the way that, picking the sweatband, picking the no button on top, picking the details of it. We did put a Velcro patch on the front with our logo sewn into it. So if you want to wear it just like that, that's cool. But if you do want to put a morale patch or something, any other, Velcro flag patch, you can just slap that on the front and have that on the hat as well. So the hats have been really cool. We did find in New York City, actually, American manufacturing for neckties and pocket squares to kind of stay with our professional stuff. So if you're wearing cufflinks, tie clip, lapel pin, if you want an American-made silk tie or a pocket square, we do have those available. We have a great partnership with a company that makes our socks for us. Again, all of this stuff's made in America. We've got some bottle openers because I like to drink beer. So I needed a what we call the everyday carry. It's a business card size bottle opener that fits in your wallet or your money clip, and that way you're never without a bottle opener. So little things like that we've come up with along the way are on our website. It's been a blast, and just trying stuff out. Like you said, if we want to order 100 of something and put it on the website and see if it sells, we can do that, or anything else. So. You want to talk about custom orders? Yeah. Talk about that.
Yeah, so we also started. It just started organically. We had companies reach out to us, be like, "Hey, we guys love what you do. Can we buy 100 or 200 of your pins? Or hey, can you make our logo into a pin? We want to work with a veteran-owned company, American-made." So we were like, "Yeah, we can do that." So we started making pins for like different universities and corporations and small businesses. So they come up, "Hey, we have our quarterly sales thing. We want to make us customized lapel pin." So we get inquiries all the time, like, "Hey, we need 100 pins here, 500 of this." So that's been pretty cool for us too, because if we can sell 1,000 pins at once, that's great. Like we actually did our first government contract with the VA. The VA needed, it was pretty cool for us. Our first government contract was with the VA. They needed length of service pins, so they needed pins for their employees who hit 5 years of service, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. and they reached out to us. We just got in the portal, and they're like, "Hey, we need these pins. Can you do it?" We're like, "Yeah, we do it." So we did 700 pins or so for the VA. When we delivered them, because they're in DC, so we were right there. The person was like, "Hey, we during COVID, it all shut down. They had all these people that were hitting these years of service, and they couldn't find a vendor to do the pins that they liked. So we brought it to her. We hand delivered it, and she was so happy. And she's like, this was great that we were able to do this. Now we can hand these out to the employees. And for us, being a veteran owned, our first government contract was with the VA, which is pretty cool. So we're looking for more government contract stuff, because all these different agencies have Department of Energy, Department of DOD, whoever who have the same thing. Federal employees had a certain amount of length of service, and our thing is, the government is giving out contracts all the time to other people, right? And they have a quota for veteran-owned businesses. So that's where we're doing those. So that's kind of a recent thing. We just won this contract a few months ago. So that's been pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean the lapel pins. I mean, sky's the limit. I mean, every single time you go to a golf tournament, it could be to honor a Gold Star family. Boom, you've got a lapel pin idea. Anytime you go to a gala, it could be the Marine Corps birthday. Boom, you're gonna put the Marine Corps birthday on there. You're gonna. I mean, literally, there could be a pen for anything, and it could be a Today with Tally podcast pen. I mean, so when you go through this process of your innovation and designing these pens, where does it go next? Do you guys have your own warehouse that you guys do this in? Is a lot of this stuff, is it farmed out? Is it subcontracted? How does the business operations behind Assault Forward work?
Yeah, I mean, the fun part of it is I kind of come from a sales and marketing background. Shah has more of a finance business background. So I enjoy the design process and coming up with kind of what it's going to look and feel like. And we've done that enough times now over the years. So I kind of have the process down, so I can work with you if you were to email me and say, I want to turn my logo into a lapel pin. We can get a draft together, go back and forth a few iterations. If you're like, no, change this, tweak that, or make this color that, or whatever. And we get that designed, and then we have a couple of trusted American manufacturers, here on the East Coast that we've worked with, that kind of specialize in different things. So one might make our cufflinks, one might make a lapel pin for us, and just kind of feed it into them. But supporting those American, also small businesses and American manufacturing and American jobs has been the way we've done it. Now, if some point this grows into a large enough business and we're pouring molten metal into molds, that could happen. But for now, we've got people that kind of know what they're doing in that space. So as long as we give them kind of a final design and work with them on the die casting of it and the stamping, we feel like that's a pretty good way to go. And that's been a good partnership for us to support those American manufacturers and jobs.
Now, this idea has morphed into what you're doing now as your full-time line of work, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely, this is something that we see, like you said, kind of sky's the limit. There's government contracting that's available to procure, goods and services from us. There's a lot of companies and nonprofits, fellow veteran organizations, other veteran-owned businesses, and big companies too. Commercial, Dow Jones type companies, S&P 500 companies. If they're purchasing this stuff, a lot of them feel good about supporting a veteran-owned small business and American manufacturing, and want to channel that to us. We want to support them, and so there's definitely runway for us. In addition to our website, we do have some of our products listed on Amazon, because that's where some people start and end their online shopping search, right? So if there's customers out there that are looking for an American-made flag lapel pin and they're searching on Amazon, we want to be found. So we're happy to have our products listed there as well. So we sell through Amazon, we sell through our website. There's great veteran friendly military spouse owned small businesses like Our Riveter, if you've ever heard of them. They're two military spouses that started a purses company, and they employ military spouses to do kind of the sewing and manufacturing. Which is a great story about how their jobs can go with them as they PCS from one duty station to the next. But they were like, hey, can we put your pins in our physical stores as well as on our online store? So like partnerships with small retail businesses, like we're happy to do that as well as like, so for us, that's like a wholesale, purchase thing. We could do that. So again, there's just so many channels and opportunities. And then, yeah, at some point, could we be in Walmart or Target or, on the 7-Eleven counter for around Veterans Day or something like that? I mean, you never know where this is going to go. But we just feel like there's an opportunity and there's space and there's room for us to do it. And for other veterans that want to start a small business doing hundreds of other different ideas, there's room for you too. So and you don't have to quit your day job. You don't have to pull out a second mortgage on the house. You don't have to max out the credit card to go massively into debt to start a small business. You can baby step it. You can, our good friend Todd Connor wrote a book called The Third Shift Entrepreneur, where he talks about, just getting yourself in that space. If you want to roast coffee, go work at a coffee shop and learn their process and see if they'll let you use the roasting equipment after hours to do your own experimentations, figure out ways to get into the space. And through that proximity to what you want to do, you'll gain a lot of relationships, you'll gain a lot of knowledge, and you can then take that and run with it, without having to have risk, your financial well-being or your family's livelihood or things like that. So there's just so many opportunities out there and great organizations, nonprofits that can help you on that journey.
Sure. A lot of people, they go all in, they throw everything that they've ever worked so hard for, all their life savings into something that perhaps may fail. And again, it doesn't need to be like that, folks. You can just enter into something like this for, $500 and then just start to build it from there. Everything is going to come into baby steps. Again, you're not going to do it all in one fall swoop. You're going to do it in stages. And as you continue to climb that ladder of success, you're going to see everything start to come around full circle. And that'll include your profits and product innovation and being in those Walmarts, Targets, and even perhaps on the shelves at 7-Eleven. Folks, we are being joined by the founders of Assault Forward, 2 military veterans, 2 combat Army military veterans who met in college, the University of Maryland, post 9/11 GI Bill education. They crossed paths, and now they're probably best friends, is what I would probably assume. If not, at least they're business partners. They probably fight after hours. Who knows when that door closes, what goes on behind there? That's why you've got, I know how it works. I used to own my own small business myself before I got hurt. And, it's always good to have, 2 minds in there that are on the same mission and have the same vision, but oftentimes may think a little bit different to kind of hold, everybody accountable and keep everybody, level, headed and again, to have those different ideas through different sets of eyeballs. Everybody has different vision. And, I think a lot of people have, so much to bring and offer to the table. Now, go check them out online, folks. AssaultForward.us. The website is right there. If you're listening on Spotify or iHeartRadio, it is AssaultForward.us. Christmas is coming, and I've been on their website, and they have great products. They have a great merchandise line, as they were talking about earlier, with the lapel pins, the cufflinks, the tie clips, much more, hats, socks, you name it. They got it. Great Christmas gift ideas. And really, at the end of the day, you could even get your own custom made lapel pin, or perhaps your own custom tie clips too, perhaps cuff and cufflinks.
Sure, we can do it all. But to your point about starting the business, as artillerymen, there's nothing more exciting to us when the call comes in for fire for effect. But before you fire for effect, you have to dial in and you have to walk the rounds onto the target, right? So we have to walk the rounds onto the target, and then once you hit the target, then you fire for effect. So you don't have to expend all your ammunition until you're going to hit your target. For us, that was the process we followed, and other entrepreneurs, as well, is, slowly iterating, make those adjustments, 500 meters to the left, 1,000 meters to, get those rounds hitting the target, and then unload, until you destroy your objective there. And that's what we wanted to do. So that's exciting for us, and appreciate, all the direction to our website and promotion like that. And, for you, Brian, as well as anybody listening, if they punch in the discount code TALLY at checkout, TALLY, we'll take 20% off any order at assaultforward.us through Christmas. Just punch in TALLY at checkout, and be a discount code for your listeners and viewers here.
Brian, it was funny when Joe was talking about the website, and it's a funny story about the website. So when we talk about starting small, so when we started, we were like, hey, Assault Forward, let's go to GoDaddy, assaultforward.com. Let's see if it's available. No, it's not available. Somebody owned it. But hey, you can put in, we can contact them to see how much it would cost for the website. We got back an email the next day. Hey, you can buy it from us. It's about what, $30,000 or $50,000? $60,000 if you want to buy assaultforward.com. We're like, you know what? Let's go to assaultforward.us, right? We paid $1 for that. Instead, we're like, no reason for us to pay, $50,000. Because then we started thinking, like, hey, is that really worth that money, $60,000? Where most people aren't typing in a URL like directly anyway, right? If you click in the link or from social media. So, but the point was like, why were you going to spend that money? Like, that's not a good investment of that money, right? And at some point, if it does come open, we'll take it. But like, we're like, no, we're going to be smart with the money and do something else. And we always explain that when people see the .us, like, we just think it's a funny story. You're like, yeah, let's do that.
30,000 about, man, that guy's proud of that. I tell you,
yeah.
man.
And he wasn't using it either. It was a website, he had just parked the domain, right? Somebody registered at assaultforward.com, and they weren't using it. So when we were like, hey, can we get it from you? And they tried to throw out that ridiculous number. We're like, you know what? Assaultforward.us works well for us. We're made in America, veteran owned. Like, a .us extension is just fine for us. Like, we'll go with assaultforward.us, and that's the website we've maintained now for going on 6 years. So it's worked fine for us, right? Yeah, I think, like you said, people are going to click on our link from the description in your show notes. They're not going to like go into a URL browser and type it in. Like, it's just, again, they find us to click a link through social media or whatever. Like, so, does it really matter? Probably not. So it's just, again, that being flexible though, right? Being, oh, I was going to go this way. Oh, adjust fire, move this way. It's like, okay, got it.
But one thing, we become really good friends over the years, working together. Like, in the program, we were cordial with each other, right? Because we knew we were both Army, we were only artillery guys. As an Army guy, like, I didn't know like other jobs exist. Like, I just knew big Army, right? So I knew infantry, artillery, engineer. Then we're meeting people in the Navy and the Coast Guard. I was like, Navy, nuke sub, what's that? Like, I have no idea what that is, right? I just knew the Army world. So we were cordial. We were super close, when we were in school together. But then when we got out, like, of course, working together, spending hours, like, we've spent so many weekends, Sunday at 5 a.m. meeting to go over stuff, do stuff, because we have family, right? So we want to take that time, but then we also push each other as well. Like, we see things differently. He has more of a marketing, like a design background. I have more finance, so we kind of complement each other. But certain things that we know, like, I know Joe will put 100%. Like, if I was by myself, like, sometimes if I might slack, I realize I can't because I have Joe depending on me, and vice versa. He knows that, he doesn't want to let me down. So we kind of push each other. Like, I ran the Marine Corps marathon last year, my first marathon. I never did a marathon before, but Joe did 3 of them before, right? So he did 3, right?
Two marathons. I did the Marine Corps marathon twice.
Yeah, he did 2 marathons. But then for me, it was like, man, like, I always wanted to do a marathon. So I kind of picked his brain. I was like, hey, Joe ran a marathon. I need to be able to do a marathon too, right? So we just kind of push each other. And like, recently he did a half marathon. He just wanted to do a half marathon just to kind of get it. And he was like, hey, you want to run it with me? I was like, fine, let's do it, right? So we kind of push each other in that way. So, so it's good to have that, a person who has that high standards. And I know, being a combat vet that he is, and it's like, we look at certain things certain way. The work ethic is there. We might come from different perspectives, which is good, right? Because he grew up differently than I did. He has different stuff, but we know that I know he's going to put 100% in, right? And I don't question his integrity or anything. Like, I know he's coming from a good place. And early on in the business, we were like, hey, Joe's a grown man. I'm a grown man. We know what our commander's intent is, right? If this is going to be successful for the business, like, Joe has runway to do what he needs to do. Like, I don't question him on things, right? Same thing. He knows hey, I know Shah has the best interest of the business at heart. I know he's going to run with it. Of course, we check in with each other often. We text every day. We're talking, right? So this has been a good, to your point, we've become really good friends. Our families know each other. We hang out often. So.
Yeah, no, I mean,
don't fight though, because Shah is a jiu-jitsu practitioner and I don't roll. So I'm not going to get in a fight with him physically anyway.
Yeah, you guys seem like you get along great. I mean, like brothers, literally, and I couldn't see how this could not be a successful partnership, if you will. You guys seem like you work very, very well together, and to Shah's credit, you guys complement each other, and you bring your specified tools of the trade to the table. And once you lay out all those tools, you'll start to see everything come together and build that foundation from the ground up. Now, I love these types of podcasts. Veterans raising up veterans, the successful veteran entrepreneurs. There's so many veterans that are going through so many life struggles, life challenges. Veteran suicide is at an all-time high. We have a lot of the issues that are going on within the veteran community, and it is always nice to, again, lift up these veteran-owned small businesses, folks that have gone out and have become entrepreneurs and have done everything to make their life better. Guys, go to assaultforward.us, see for yourself. The website is awesome. Like you said, type in Tally at checkout and you'll even get 20% off. Go to assaultforward.us. Joe and Shah, I'm going to end it on this. There's a lot of veterans out there that are going to be listening to this. A lot may be in a dark place. And they may need some encouragement or some inspiration for them to get up and to get out of that comfort zone and re-enter this world and make a difference and go out and challenge themselves every single day to perhaps start their own business, to become an entrepreneur, to become that contributor once again to society that they were prior to an injury or whatever may be that may have caused their anxieties and their depressions in life to keep them down. So they think. They come across this podcast. What type of encouragement or advice could you give those out there today that may be either thinking about going into business for themselves or trying to lift somebody up?
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is connection. So, be a little vulnerable and find a connection, whether it's through, your church, your local, VFW or American Legion post, through, a school organization, veterans on campus, wherever you're back at school, as a young adult, you're a little bit older, a non-traditional student. So find others that are in that same boat. You can make a connection, other veterans in your community, civic organization. Like, we still believe as veterans, like, we're serving a purpose bigger than ourselves. And it sounds silly, a lapel pin, but if that helps a fellow veteran share the story of their service, be like, oh, I see you have a reverse American flag on. Like, I know what that means. Oh yeah, I was in the Marines. I was in the Navy. I was, if that starts a conversation and allows you to open up and share the story of your service, like, that lapel pin for us has accomplished its mission. Then it's opened the door to start a conversation and make a connection. And that's what it's all about. It's about personal connection. I love to fight back against the narrative of the wounded veteran and the broken veteran who comes out of the service. I mean, I've got plenty of soldiers I served with that have had their struggles and trials and tribulations in life. And I don't want anybody else to suffer or go down that path of veteran suicide or veteran homelessness or other issues. Substance abuse, alcoholism, these are all real issues, and we all need to work together as a community to lift each other up. So those connections, those personal connections matter. I hate to think that there's a veteran out there that I served with that's, alone and afraid and doesn't have anybody to talk to. Like, we're all more reachable than ever through social media, through our cell phones and text messages and things like that. Like, we got to reach out to each other, lift up the phone and talk and just have a conversation and let us know how we can help each other. Because the brothers and sisters you served with in uniform are still working alongside you today, or ones you didn't serve with in combat, but it cut from that common cloth, we want to do it together. So, just get out there and get a connection going, because it just means the world to people.
Sure. Yeah. That connectivity is absolutely 100% correct. Anytime I'm somewhere wearing my lapel pin, it always sparks several conversations that would have never been had unless that lapel pin was being worn on my jacket, on my coat jacket. And it's you in the cooler of designs that you can make. I mean, like, you can make anything. So, I mean, you can make probably put a baseball bat on there and go somewhere and be like, hey, you're a big baseball fan. I mean, literally everything can be made into a lapel pin, and they do spark conversations. And you never know where these conversations may lead. You never know. It could be a job, offer that, you get to meet somebody, and, you're talking to the president of a Fortune 500 company. And before you know it, he's like, hey, I really like how you're carrying out this conversation. I'd like to offer you a job. I mean, you never know where things are going to lead you in life until you get out there and start living it. And again, those lapel pins are definitely great for conversation starters, for icebreakers, especially. Shah, the finance guy, what type of advice could you give anybody listening to this program today about entrepreneurship?
I think what Joe kind of mentioned, what I like to say, just regular entrepreneurship, but then to your point, veterans who are looking to that next adventure or something just to help them get past like maybe a rough kind of spot in life where they're looking for purpose, right? I kind of look at kind of three things, like being physically fit, mentally fit, socially fit, right? And I'll kind of go, so physically fit, like same thing every day. I do something in the morning, right? I'm either running, exercise, I do something every morning, because we know, like I learned back in the Army days, like a fit mind is a fit body just takes longer to tire, right? Like you're just sharp. So I know, like I run, like I don't run as much as I used to, like when I did a marathon, but when I'm running at 5 a.m, like I know there's not a lot of people out there. So I feel I have an edge against the competition, right? Because I'm out there in the dark, putting in the miles, I'm putting in the workout time, just to make, and we know chemically, like it helps your brains, right? Like all the energy, all the, what are those things called? Endorphins going. Yeah, there you go. Endorphins going, it helps you, right? So that's huge to Joe's point. I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've been doing it for like 12 years. After a long day, like I love going in and choking people and getting choked. Like it's just fun, right? Like that's a good way to get that energy, that testosterone out, right? So I do that. So again, staying physically fit, I think, is super important for guys. I know a lot of guys who got out of the military and then they just never ran anymore, just let themselves go. I'm like, guys, like, I'm 44 years old. Like we owe it to us and our families to be fit, right? Because I don't want to die of a heart attack 5 years from now and leave my kids like without a dad, right? So I make sure I stay physically fit. Second, I say mentally fit. Read books, podcasts, like ideas come from like other people, right? Other things. So constantly reading, like I'll say over the last few years, learning from people like Jocko Willink, right? Who talks about extreme ownership, like taking ownership for anything that goes wrong, realizing it's okay to be wrong, right? Just admit it and learn from it. Or guys like David Goggins, that you can push more yourself mentally. There's more you can put out there in the world. So listen to guys like you, Tally, you have some great guys on your podcast, right? Like picking up ideas from these people. So staying mentally fit. I try to read a chapter, a book every day, some different book I rotate, right? So I think staying mentally fit will help. And the last thing, as Joe mentioned, being socially fit, that means for me, like having a network of people, because I know finance really well. When it comes to design stuff or marketing, like that's Joe, right? So like I have him to lean on, but I try to have people who are better at me in certain things. And it's okay to realize like, you're not going to be the best at everything. You can't be. There's always going to be someone better financially, socially, mentally, spiritually, like having those people that you can lean on to get ideas from and working for them. But you have to be out there. You can't just sit on the couch and watch Netflix for 10 hours a day, because you're not going to get ideas there, right? So I think I read a book a while ago. It said, if you're in a bad place right now and you can't figure out, like, your best decisions got you to this bad place. So that sucks, right? If your best decisions got you to this bad place you're in, the same level of thinking is not going to get you out. You need to get ideas from other people. But I think you have to have a certain level of humbleness and check the ego to say, hey, it's okay that I don't know marketing. I don't have to know marketing as much, right? Because I have Joe to lean on, right? Like I don't have to know marketing, or I don't have to know about running podcasts, right? Because I can ask you a question, right? So I think having that network, being socially fit, I think will help. But you have to get out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Surround yourself with like-minded individuals who have the same goals and, vision as you, and lean on people that may have a lot more, you know, um, what's the word I'm looking for?
Experience.
Lean on people, yeah, that just have more knowledge in the arena, that you're in, or or you're trying to advance, but physically fit, mentally fit, socially fit, and taking the aggression out on the mats. Man, Shaw, you got it all figured out, buddy.
No, I got a long way, man, but it's worked for us so far, though.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. That's some really good advice right there. Running, exercise, eating right. Like you said, you owe it to your family to be the best that you can be. To be the best provider, the best husband, and the best father, and a great entrepreneur, right? And you owe it to your business partner. And the same thing can go from Joe to you and his family. And it's what makes America great, and that's what makes friendships and families and the family unit and all that stuff very special. Gentlemen, with that, I'd like to thank you both for joining me today. This has been a great chat, and I wish you guys nothing but the best moving forward with assaultforward.us. Go to the website today, assaultforward.us. That was a $1 purchase for that website, and they could have spent $30,000. So now they are always going to be in the black, $30,000. How about that for the finance guy? So thank you for joining us today. We sincerely appreciate everything you have done and continue to do in the military and veteran community. Your service, sacrifice, and dedication to our great nation is truly admirable. Folks, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the program. It has never been easier to listen to this podcast. We're on Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TikTok, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Simply search Today with Tally. Also learn more about me and my personal story, and perhaps even get my new book at briantally.com. That's briantally.com. Folks, remember to stay inspired, stay encouraged, stay motivated, and always stay in the fight. Until next time, for the Today with Tally podcast, this is Brian Tally. Good night. Semper Fi. God bless.